What's up, Tuskens? We're the Hilsmaniacs, and today we're going to be doing our review of the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2. Okay, so today the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2 came out on Disney Plus, and it was kind of a different episode from Episode 1, I think.
Yeah.
They focused a lot more on Boba's backstory after he came out of the Sarlacc and was with the group of Tuskens. They did a lot more with that than they did in the present day, but I'm fine with it. I kind of like seeing this, how he got that armor that he had at the when he met Mando in the Mandalorian, and how he basically survived in the wilderness for who knows how long before the events of the Mandalorian when he came back.
Right.
And I really enjoy that they're showing this part of it. And again, it's only when he goes into the bacta tank that he has these kind of flashbacks. Hashtag flashback
the tank. There it is.
And I really enjoy the way they do this. I think they do it just right. Like we said last week, they do enough of each to keep it focused. And this week they didn't really flash back and forth. They just kind of did all of this stuff, then flashed back and did all of that. And
Because like the first maybe 5 to 10 minutes of the episode was set in the present day, and then everything else we see is with him with the Tusken Raiders and all that stuff. I think I said this last week in our review of the first episode. I kind of like seeing the flashback stuff more than the modern stuff. Because right now the modern stuff just kind of feels like things are just happening. It feels like they focused more of the story on what he was doing in the past with the Tusken Raiders. Because if this whole episode was mainly that, then maybe they should have just made season 1 of this show all about Boba, like after he got out of the Sarlacc pit. And then, then pick up with, like, if they have a season 2 or something, could be all this modern stuff after the events of the Mandalorian, after we see him and everything that he does in that, and then ends up in Tatooine. So, like, the fact that they focused on that more in this episode tells me that they kind of want to do that, or this was only a 2-part thing, like the past stuff, because it does seem like it might be done now based on what happened. So they might not be doing any more of these past things, and it might focus more on the present stuff.
Here's the thing, and all my years of watching Star Wars, there's one thing that's always kind of been constant with Star Wars, and it's the fact that nobody's ever really gone in the series until you actually see them die, or you hear that the end of the that their planet was destroyed or something.
Well, that's with everything, really.
I think that we can assume, probably, that these flashbacks are going to lead to a point where somebody because they end up fighting against these kind of, like, raiders from Kessel, who I think we might have seen in Rogue One, or probably Solo, actually. I think they were the group that Han and them went to when they ended up doing the Kessel run in the Millennium Falcon, because they were trying to steal the stuff from the mines of Kessel. I think this might be the same group, and so, or at least a version of this group.
That would be a nice tie-in to at least one of the movies if they.
But
did that.
I think this group will come back because they left them all alive.
Well,
which is stupid
some of them.
in Star Wars.
I think some of them died.
Okay, well, still, the majority of them were still alive after this battle, and they let them go back and tell everybody that, look, we're not evil people, and I think they'll come back, and that's usually how this ends up working. We saw these other 2 Hutts in this episode, in the present day stuff. Where they're the cousins of Jabba the Hutt, and they're trying to claim his land basically as part of Nal Hutto, which is their home planet, and saying that they have the rights to this land because their cousin was the ruler of it, which makes sense.
To be fair,
that's how property works. But I think that these 2 groups, because they focused a lot on both of them in this episode, I think they'll end up playing some role in the overall picture together as
like
basically both the threats
like
that, like, the Hutts hired this group to track down Boba Fett in the present, but they already ran into Boba Fett in the past, and then that'll come back into play, and Boba will have to go back to these Tusken tribes that he survived with and help, to get some extra help or security for these people trying to take back his land. I think, and the way they always set up for Star Wars, if that's what they're doing, I think that's genius, because now you have all this flashback stuff isn't just a pointless flashback. And they would.
Well,
I don't think they would focus
anyways.
But but I don't think they would focus on this much detail with the Tusken Raiders and having them fight against this random group in the past for him to earn this armor, and that was it. I think this is going to play a bigger role.
If you think about it, even compared to, like, The Mandalorian, like, in that show, it was like every episode kind of just felt like they were just random, just like he goes here and does this thing, helps this person, then he goes here and does this thing, something happens to his ship and he needs it repaired, so he has to help this person do something first. That's kind of what all of the episodes of at least the first season of The Mandalorian were.
Well, that's because he was a bounty hunter.
Well, that's what I mean. But then, like, at the end of the season, you see that those people come back to help him.
Right.
So maybe that could be what this is as well. Like, maybe it's not necessarily that he goes to the Tuskens for help. Maybe they come to help him at the end. But yeah, that would be interesting if they brought out, like, they connect the two things that we've been seeing, like you said.
I mean, and like you brought up the point with The Mandalorian, where it kind of started off where he's doing these little odd jobs, and then it ends up building the story to where he's at now.
It's like all the characters he meets
It's
along
basically
the way.
the same thing looking at the life of Boba Fett. Some of these people on Tatooine remember Boba Fett, but they remember him as the ruthless bounty hunter Boba Fett, not the crime syndicate leader Boba Fett, who can be peaceful when he needs to be, and so I think this is doing a great job of kind of showing that transition to where when he came out of the Sarlacc, he was still Boba Fett the bounty hunter, but being with the Tuskens, he learned a different way of life, and he learned that kind of caring nature, if you will, where, like, you basically have to help all of humanity because they're going through other stuff, but this is their way of life. You shouldn't take it from them just because you don't agree with it, things like that. And this is what he learned from them, and he's going to try to apply that as leader of the crime syndicates in
and I like that they turned him from, like, he was basically a villain in the in the original Star Wars trilogy, and now he's transitioning into, I guess, maybe an anti-hero, or maybe he'll just be a hero, because he's still kind of, he, like, still will fight and kill people, like a bounty hunter.
But that's
what Mando does too, I guess.
It's kind of he needs to, though.
Yeah. So it's kind of an anti-hero, maybe more of, like, a hero and stuff, but that's something you wouldn't expect in, like, Star Wars, well, actually, I would expect it, actually.
Well,
every bad guy except Palpatine is pretty much turned to the good side at some point.
Well,
Vader, Kylo Ren.
Kind of. Yeah. No, but even, you look at what he's done with Fennec Shand, and even in this episode, we got a tease of the Rancor that didn't exist.
There was nothing there.
And, they used this kind of fear that everybody had of Jabba to run the place.
Yeah. Right.
But then they combine it with Boba's like, new personality, to where he won't let Fennec randomly kill people.
Yeah, he kind of contains her and keeps her
He saved the Gamorrean guards, and in the end, they ended up helping him.
Right.
He saved the one traitor guy, assassin, that tried to attack him, and he ended up finding out this whole other plot from the Hutts, basically.
Yeah.
They haven't confirmed that it's from the Hutts,
it's
but
kind
that's what they're making it play out to be. So basically, his sympathy towards these other people that he's saving is going to end up helping him run, and he said he wants to rule Jabba ruled with fear, he wants to rule with honor, or whatever he said in the first episode.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what he's doing. And I think it's a great way to take a character like Boba Fett, who has had a rough past. He watched his father get decapitated.
Right.
He's been on his own the whole time we saw his journey in the Clone Wars, where he was with Aurra Sing and Bossk and all these other bounty hunters and went through all kinds of stuff, almost died numerous times just to get revenge on Mace Windu for killing his father. And then, of course, in Empire and Return of the Jedi, he's working for Jabba the Hutt, and he was still this vengeful, bounty hunter.
Yeah, he's been seeking revenge all these years.
And all this stuff he's gone through, and yet this tribe of Tuskens on Tatooine is what's basically changed his way of life. And I think this is just a great way to show that anybody can change in the Star Wars universe, and not just Star Wars. I mean, just in life in general.
Yeah, and it's like you said, because they saved him when they could have killed him, because they found him out in the desert, pretty much already dying.
Right.
And they took him, and they had him captive in the first episode, and then he tried to escape or whatever, but he kind of, got to them basically where they decided to keep it because he saved one. He killed the beast that was targeting them. He saved one of their young or things like that. And I also like that not only is he learning things from the Tusken Raiders, they learned some things from him in this episode too. He teaches them how to ride on some speeder bikes that he finds, and things like that. And he takes out the people that were shooting them also. So he kind of taught them some things, and they taught him.
They taught him basically how to fight with the stick and all that kind of stuff.
So that was kind of a neat parallel as well.
So it was basically a symbiotic relationship between the two. They needed him, he needed them. And that's why I think it'll end up playing in later on in the series. Either he'll go to them for help, or he'll send out word that he needs help, and they'll come to his aid because they remember him, or something along those lines.
And I think it's cool also because this gives us a different look at the life of the Tusken Raiders too, because mostly what we've seen of them in the Star Wars universe is kind of being these mysterious people in the desert, they were shooting at during the pod race, they were shooting at the bikes and the riders and everything.
And Attack of the Clones.
And
Attack of the Clones.
When they
were doing Shmi.
Yeah, all that. That's what I mean. So they've always been portrayed as basically these villainous, mysterious people that live in the desert. They're called the Sand People by some people, So
and I mean, there's different tribes.
But it gave us a nice little look into them as well. One thing I am curious about, though, I feel like this, the leader of this Tusken tribe that we keep seeing, he seems a little bit suspicious. He seems to be able to do more than a normal Tusken.
Well, that's not even the leader. The one that trains him, that's not even the leader.
Oh, well, okay, that guy. He just seems a little bit suspicious to me.
See, and I don't know. And I brought up the point. I highly doubt this because this would have been way before this. But in the comics, one of these Sith Lords, Darth Krayt, I believe it was Darth Krayt, actually becomes one of the. He joins the Tusken Raiders when he leaves the Jedi Order.
That would be interesting.
And so he uses his Jedi abilities to basically train them, kind of the way Boba Fett did. He helps them learn a new way of life. And obviously, this probably would have been way in the during the Old Republic type of stuff. About it, unless they're going a different route with his character and they just had him survive Order 66 and he's just been living on Tatooine.
This could be a whole new Disney Plus spin-off series.
Either way,
this guy is.
I don't know who this Tusken Raider is.
He does seem a bit
really
more.
Cool.
He's really cool, but he does seem he seemed to learn the speeder bike
pretty
quicker
quick.
Than anybody. He already knew how to do it.
Right.
And it makes sense if you think about it, because if Boba Fett is able to get kind of brought into their tribe and become one of them, somebody else could.
Right.
I don't know if we ever really. He does speak, I guess, but he could have learned how to speak Tusken like that to disguise himself because he has the helmets on like they all have.
But I see, and I think, and if you watch my video later on this week when I do predictions for people I think will make an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, technically any one of those people could possibly already be on Tatooine and be in this tribe.
Yeah, either a Tusken Raider or hiding somewhere.
I'm glad you brought that guy up, because it is kind of suspicious as to who this guy is, and I think that's why they focused a lot on this one particular Tusken, because I think he's going to end up either, and if he's not somebody we know, it'll be somebody that ends up being important in either just this franchise or the overall series. Maybe somebody like Ezra Bridger, who we know, is still alive out there somewhere, and if Ahsoka's tracking down Thrawn, maybe Ezra is on Tatooine. And we know he would have went back to Tatooine to look for Obi-Wan, because that's where he met Obi-Wan before A New Hope. So, who knows? Maybe it's Ezra in the thing, and that's why he already knew how to do all this stuff.
So yeah, for me personally, them showing the past stuff seems to have a better story there than the present day stuff. But the story that they're telling with this character, with these flashbacks, is a lot better, I feel like, than what they're telling with him currently. At least right now, until we see a full episode of just the present day stuff, and it gets better, then maybe that's where it might get a lot better from that.
I think that's where they're going now, because we're at that point where he has his Tusken armor, and it looks like he's getting ready to leave. I think the reason they focused so much on it wasn't just to tell the story of how Boba escaped. I think it was to build up something for future episodes, and there's only so many episodes this season, but I think they can get it done to where Boba can then rightfully rule Tatooine. At the end,
and like I said, even last week, I said I feel like this show could just be, even if it's just one season, it's a nice way to sort of weave back into the Mandalorian. Like, I feel like they could take Boba Fett after this point, where he's rolling Tatooine, and maybe something comes up where he joins with Mando again. So it'd kind of be this nice thing where it still kind of shows its own thing, and then goes back to what basically the main start of this whole little franchise that they're doing on these Disney Plus shows, the Mandoverse, as people call it.
So anyways, guys, there you go. That was our thoughts on Chapter 2 of the Book of Boba Fett. If you haven't seen Chapters 1 or 2 of this show, definitely go check them out. So anyways, guys, there you go. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for what else we got going on, and may the Force be with you.
Subscribe.